We filled the forms, we chased the dream, late night hopes.
Hello, and welcome to Vox Populi, the podcast where voices turn into visions and experiences become guidance. I am Neha Tripathi, career counselor at Sunbeam School, Bhagwanpur. In our Beyond Borders series, we explore what it truly means to study abroad, not as an aspiration alone, but as a carefully prepared academic and personal journey. In our first episode, we spoke about preparation, planning, and perspective. In today's conversation, we move a step further into research driven learning, academic independence, and quiet discipline required to sustain growth in a global academic space. Because studying abroad is not just about where you go, but about how deeply you engage once you arrive. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome Mr. Avish Mehrotra, one of our proud alumni, currently a researcher at Voice, Bocconi University, from Sunbeam classrooms to an international research environment. Avish has experienced the realities of studying abroad with rigor, reflection, and responsibility. And he joins us today to share his journey, insights, and learnings with our students. Welcome to Vox Populi, Avish.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
My heartfelt welcome to you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Avish, what inspired you to study abroad? I mean, you've been a very popular student in terms of how do I take it? How do I ask you this question?
People can fill in with contextual clues there. Honestly, for me, since I was a kid, I was very much online. I was always in online spaces. I had very early access to the internet. That made me, in general, a globalized student relative to my peers. But also, as I see now with students now, how students are today. So that kind of gave me a vision that going abroad, studying in different places, especially in the West, where you have much more opportunities when it comes to academics, when it comes to jobs, when it comes to income. It's a completely different world out there, and that's what inspired me to pursue my studies there.
And how important do you think are SAT scores for going abroad, or your, academic records?
It completely depends on which place you're going geographically. So for the US, SAT scores, despite what you think, are still very important. In other case, for UK, SAT scores are barely important. I don't think that they even take SAT scores. There's certain colleges, for example, the exceptions in Europe, Bocconi, the college that I'm in, they accept, in fact, they prioritize SAT and ACT scores. So if you want to apply specifically to that, then they're important. But there are alternatives to apply to Bocconi as well with their own test. And in general, in Europe, your grades are much more important. So anywhere in Europe, your grades will be prioritized over everything else. Australia, New Zealand, anywhere in the Anglosphere outside of the US, your grades will be a bigger priority.
Okay. Avish, also I want to know, because a lot of our students, they are in this, I asked this question to Ishan as well, and I'm asking this question to you also, so that it emphasizes on their head that just doing extracurriculars in their grade 11 does not suffice getting through a good college in any of the colleges abroad. What is your take on this? Do you think just the extracurriculars are important apart from academic?
I think that the most important part, even in places where academics are the least important, such as the US, even there, academics will be a major priority, if not the biggest part of your application. It is a misnomer. Obviously, any extracurricular can help. If you're an Olympiad champion, or if you do quizzes or debates, those are very important. But those are decoration on your application. Your application strength is your test scores, your ACT, and also not just your grades, but particularly your position within the grades. So especially in the US, because they don't understand what 75% or what 80% means within an Indian context. So they're going to compare you with your peers. So it's very valuable that you put in like, oh, I scored 90%, but that's top 1% within my batch of 600 people. So give them context clues to figure out what your academic position is.
That's actually a very relevant answer. I just wanted you to emphasize on it, because when I keep telling them about all these things, they don't listen. Yeah. For students interested in research-oriented programs, what kind of preparation matters
I think the biggest thing
beyond the academics, of course?
on the academics, the biggest thing is, first of all, like the basic answer. You have to be very interested. You have to be very, very interested in the subject. I am pursuing a research field, but I also have other options open, such as policy, because it's a very, very hard field to succeed at. Try to contact with professors. You have a university nearby, BHU. You have DU. Professors in general are not that easy to contact, but if you can get any contact, if you can get their emails, if they would love to respond and they would love to help in general if you are a truly interested student. So building a connection with someone who's doing research initially is important. That can just help you figure out your journey early, and also just like read books within your subject. I was in 11th grade when I bought a copy of Poor Economics. It's one of the starter books for anyone who's interested in economics. Then you slowly start reading other authors which go more deeper in the topic, Thomas Piketty, Friedman, etc. But again, like, be deeply interested and try to contact people within the field who are doing research there.
Okay, I'm just taking you back to your school days. I remember you initially opted for science.
Yes.
And then you moved on to humanities.
Yes.
And then you curated your combination.
Yes.
Why do you think, what made you do so?
I'd never really faced that typical pressure of Indian family to take PCM. There was a little bit of nudges that if you take physics, chemistry, and math, you will have more options.
Mm-hmm.
You can do economics later on, but you can't go back to doing engineering or something within a technical field,
True.
which is reasonable. So if you want your options open, a PCM is one of the best choices to make. But I kind of decided already by 11th grade that I do not want to get into technical fields or scientific fields. I was much more interested in the social sciences. Mathematical social sciences, so like economics, statistics, econometrics, that was my forte. So that's why midway through 11th, I just kind of decided that I would be, first, science is a hard field. So my exam grades would be significantly lower than I would be in humanities. And when you're applying abroad, those things do tend to factor in. That was one of the things. Other was I was just not interested. I was genuinely, I could not get myself to study physics. I could not, physics was just particularly hard for me. So, I thought that at that moment it made the most sense for me to shift my fields.
So Europe offers a diverse academic ecosystem, Avish, with strong emphasis on interdisciplinary research and funded doctoral pathways. What should students understand about choosing the right country, institution, college, etc., etc.?
With studying in Europe, I would say the biggest barrier that even that's a barrier, that's a very obvious barrier as well, as language. It's very hard to get jobs in Europe without knowing the language there. So wherever you're choosing, if I chose Italy, and one of the things that I was unprepared for was living in Milan. It's an international city. You don't need to know Italian, but if you need a job there, if you need to work part-time there, anything, you need to know the local language. So it's fundamental that wherever you're going, learn the language. Now there are different flexibilities for people. If you go to Sweden, you can go by just with English, because most people there are comfortable with English. Netherlands is in a similar regard. Most Scandinavian and Northern European countries are fine with you just speaking English, although local language will help. Southern European countries such as Spain, Italy, Greece, any Eastern European countries as well, such as Poland, which is another like emerging study destination for students. it's much more necessary for you to learn the language. It's a hard question to answer because I didn't choose a country. I chose my college. And then the country just happened to surprise me. I enjoyed the country, so I wouldn't be the right person to answer this question because I did not choose my country. I just chose the college, and I happened to really enjoy living in Italy, which is not super hard.
I very well remember that you were very focused on getting into it.
Exactly. So that's the thing. Like the thing is that I just happen to like Italy. I know people who go in European countries, and especially because there's not a lot of Indians there. Although there is an Indian community everywhere you go in Europe, in every major city. Since there's not as much as in the UK or in the US, they tend to feel isolated. They tend to feel alone. So if it's a very personal thing. You choose based on your own, make your own metric, make your own like a system of like deciding what is your priority, what kind of things you personally prefer, be it job market, be it good food, whatever you want to, because like I feel like one of the things I really want to emphasize is obviously you want to choose a good college, you want to choose a good major, but also you want to choose like a good life for the next 3 years.
Correct.
So you have to make sure that you are in a place which you can culturally integrate in.
So, since you've brought in culture element here, I'll just ask you one question. What was the biggest culture shock you met the moment you landed in Italy?
The biggest culture shock, prices, I guess. The prices are incredibly high, but more or less, it's a very high trust society relative to India. People tend to be, in general, very trusting of each other. There's not a lot of haggling of prices. There's not a lot of. It's considered very uncultured to haggle over prices. People leave their doors open. It's a very high trust society relative to India. So I wouldn't say it was a culture shock because I was kind of prepared for it because everyone knows that in general. But it does, when you start living in it, it does feel different. It does. I did not lock the doors of my apartment. I mean, I lived in a safer neighborhood as well. So it's a place. It's a relative thing, but still, it's a high trust society, and that's one of the things that I was really surprised by.
Many European universities value independence, self-directed inquiry, and early publication. How can Indian students mentally and academically prepare for this level of autonomy while transitioning into European research environments?
I think one of the things that I would clear up on this is Europe is a misnomer in the sense that it's still a recently deepening union. It's very different in different countries. If you go to a place like Italy, like my course Bocconi, it's structured the same way as like DU courses are structured, in a way that I don't get to decide my electives until third year.
Okay.
That's one of the drawbacks of my university, which I would prefer they did not do that. I hope they gave me a choice. I wish they gave me a choice for the courses I was supposed to select. So that's that. But if you go to a place like Denmark, they have much more like course flexibility. They give you much more choices within electives. So again, it's a it's a heterogeneous environment there. Yeah, different countries have different norms, and different universities have different norms. So in that regard, yes, it's depends on your university. You will have to adjust according to that. Certain universities will give you much more autonomy, which has its own benefits. You get to go outside, collaborate with other universities. You get to interact much more with professors. The office hours are much more lenient. Universities that are much more structured, much deeply structured, they provide you with a deeper experience within the university. So you have much better chances of doing any sort of research within the university. Bocconi is an example of that. But again, I would say just like play your cards right. Depends on your university, you will get a certain hand, and if you play your cards right, you're gonna get something.
One last question. Do you think students from Sunbeam in specific should go and study abroad?
If you can afford, I think 100%. I feel like I'm deeply privileged that I was able to do that. If that is something that you can fit within your expenses, because obviously you're gonna go there, you're gonna work there, you're gonna make money. there are jobs there. There's a good income stream there. So it shouldn't be super hard to be successful once you are there. You're part of Sunbeam family. You would know how to succeed academically. So the problem is going there. Can you cross that boundary? So in terms of should you do that, depends on your finances. If you're able to, 100%. I think it's one of the best decisions I've made personally yet in my life. So I think it's a very very beneficial.
Yeah. One more question related to this. Do you think you get enough of internship opportunities or opportunities to work apart from your college? I mean, do you get time to do that?
So there are two questions there. One, do I get time or do I get them? So for,
Both of them.
the time one is the easiest to answer. Yes, universities in Europe are very lenient when it comes to your attendance, your how you can diversify your time. So it's not like school. You don't have like a 8 o'clock morning and 4 o'clock evening. You have certain days. For an entire semester, my entire Friday was free. So I had a long weekend. That was an incredible semester for me. So it's the timings are much more for yourself. So in terms of do you get time to do an internship within course, it's possible, 100%. You also get time in summer breaks. You also get spring weeks if you wanna do specific. From Bocconi context, I can say it's a business school, so I can give you finance internships advice. Apply for spring weeks in London, in different places in Europe. Apply for summer analyst when you apply in June. You start applying in November, but you do that in June. So yes, for time, 100% you get the time. Do you get that internship? Depends on the labor market. It was really hard for me to get mine. It's especially since I would like to know this, that it's especially since you're a non-EU student, certain countries are inaccessible. Like legally, you cannot get an internship there.
Okay.
Luxembourg is one of them. I went to Luxembourg's Bocconi in Jobs, so they have like a kind of a placement event. And a lot of the recruiters there loved my profile. They said that we would love to hire you in any different one of our branches, but we cannot legally hire you in Luxembourg. And it's the same with Switzerland. So like the super high earning micronations or like semi-micronations or tax havens per se, they would find it. They have laws that make sure that only students within the EEA, so European Economic Area, are given entry-level roles. For upper-level roles, yeah, obviously it's open. So yeah, you have certain restrictions, visa restrictions. You always have to fill the form when you fill the application. You also have to fill the you do need a sponsorship. So it will put you a step back, but I wouldn't say that it's a disqualifier by any means. And that step back is a very small step back. If you have the skills, if you are confident within yourself, I think it's not impossible.
Okay, that's very honestly answered. Thank you so much. I'll just take one more. I just want you to reflect on to the time of isolation that you've ever suffered in these years. Since you're away from your family, how did you manage those times by yourself?
The thing is that the isolation has only been hitting me for the past year or so, because when you grow up in we don't live in New Delhi, we don't live in Mumbai, we don't live in a big city. So we live in Banaras, it's a small town. You're not really exposed to a lot. So when you go there initially, the culture shock, the settling, this is just a personal experience. Some people experience isolation immediately. For me, for the first year, I was just enjoying my life. This is the first time I get so much freedom to go out, visit, have a nice time for myself, have enough freedom to do whatever I want without much checks and balances. So honestly, first year I did not really feel much isolation. Second year, initially I didn't either, because I came back, I was here in India for 2 months, I was getting the best of both worlds. But end of second year I did not get to come back home because I was doing an internship in London. That kind of not coming back home for 2 months a year, those 2 months that I kind of expected to come back, and then I was continuously there, and I was not able to come back to Banaras for 8 months straight. After a while, yeah, it becomes becomes very stressful. It becomes, you feel isolated. Uh, Keep contact with your family, obviously. Keep talking to them. You'll 100% make friends there. People are very sociable there, so that wouldn't be a problem. So that's something that did help me. Going out, exploring culture, making friends. Um, Funnily enough, in Italy, traveling is very cheap once you reach there. So, if I'm in Milan, if I want to go to Como, it's €5. Go to North. You want to go Turin, you want to go Venice, you want to go Naples, everything is nearby. So, and everything, the traveling prices are very similar to those with train in India. So, I use travel as a cope. People have different sorts of cope, so that's what I used.
Do you have plans to come back to India?
Uh, I think that there's no reason for me to like make such long plans. I keep that option open. Obviously, I miss my family. I miss my home. I miss my city. I miss my country. Obviously, you do. You grow up like you're not born there. You grow up here for your majority of your growing years. So you'll obviously miss it. So I'm not keeping it off the books, but currently it's much more useful for me to make short-term plans and medium-term plans, short-term plans and medium-term plans, and see if there's a long-term vision there. Keep my long-term vision much more open.
Avish in Sunbeam classrooms
Yeah.
and Avish now, what difference do you see?
I was incredibly irresponsible as a student here. I was the one commonality is I still keep my hair long, which was not appreciated by my Sunbeam teachers, and which was not just not appreciated when I came here. But in general, like when I was in Sunbeam, I was still in a sheltered environment. I came here I had my own bike here, so I came here with that. I had a lot of privileges of being within a household where I have everything provided for me. I still have that, but there is a certain sense of like, when you're outside, you're on your own. There have been experiences where it just hits you like, either here no one's gonna come help you. You're completely on your own. Here I had a support system. I had friends. I knew people. I had a support group that was already provided for me by my parents, and the support group you kind of just develop when you were a kid. Going outside in a completely different country where people don't speak your language, it's really hard to develop that support group. But if you try hard enough, then nothing's impossible. That's something that's a major difference. That I learned how to make friends. I learned how to create my own social safety net, and I learned how to just live on my own. Here I was incredibly sheltered. So that's the major difference.
That's incredibly insightful and honest answers. Thank you, Avish. And your journey definitely reflects the discipline and depth that research demands and the kind of preparedness our students need to understand early on. Thank you so much for being here. As we conclude today's episode, one message stands out clearly. Studying abroad, especially in research, is not about speed but about substance. It is about patience, perseverance, and the ability to work quietly toward long-term goals. Thank you, Avish.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your journey with us, and that too with such honesty, and for offering our students a realistic and inspiring view of global academic life. To our listeners, remember, global learning begins with strong foundations and sustained efforts. Prepare thoughtfully, stay curious, and commit deeply to the path you choose. This was Vox Populi, where experiences speak and futures listen. Until next time, keep dreaming beyond borders.